Hi, I'm Kalynn Amadio, your Boomer host and creator of the Boomer's Ultimate Guide podcast. And I am very excited to introduce you to today's wonderful guest, Chef Dennis Littley, or Chef Dennis, as he's often known at work and across the internet. He is an executive chef, a culinary instructor, food blogger, Google Plus specialist, HOA host, and HOA means a hangout on air. That's a Google Plus terminology for their video, video meeting system that they have. And he's an HOA host, and he produces live YouTube programming as well. Chef Dennis fell in love with food at an early age, and he has a lifelong passion for it, and it also became his career. Not only that, but he is a very successful blogger and a staple of the Google Plus community as well. So, Chef Dennis, welcome to the Boomer's Ultimate Guide podcast.
Wow, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad that you could take the time. Step out of the kitchen. I know that you'd rather be in there concocting something absolutely wonderful for you and your wife.
I know we do eat well, and we do love eating, and because of the blog, I get to try a lot of things that normally I might not make.
Right.
Just because I'm not used to them, or it's something different. We do eat a lot of the same foods. I won't say we don't. And she'll always say, "Did you take pictures of it?" I says, "No, I did already. It's already been on the blog. It's already been on Instagram. Okay, let's just eat.
Let's just eat and enjoy it. Let's not make a business out of it." So, for everyone out there, just tell them a little bit more about you, how you got started, how you became Chef Dennis.
Okay. Well, I started, like I said, at a pretty early age, and I love to eat, and that goes without saying. I had a Mexican grandmother that used to spoil me rotten, feed me, and really learned to enjoy food enthusiastically at a very early age because of the food she would make for me. And my mother was a nurse, and she worked night shifts so she could be home with us more. And I would end up cooking for myself just because I was hungry, and I didn't want to always wake her up. So that started me, experimenting in the kitchen. My father liked to cook, but he didn't do it very often, but he was very good at it when he did. So, I would take lessons from that and just start cooking for myself. And then there was a gentleman on TV called Graham Kerr. And this is a crowd I'm speaking to that probably all remembers him, the Galloping Gourmet.
Yes.
Say that now and people have no clue. But he was so much fun. And I would watch the people ooh and ah, and they'd love his food. And he was cutting edge back then, before there were all these network shows. And I said, that's just a really incredible way to make a living, feeding people. So that made me start thinking more about that. But when you're young and you don't have that real direction and you're not sure where you're going, I went off in many different directions before I finally came back to food and decided that's where I belong. That's what I was really good at. I knew how to work with it and how to listen to it, and I had some very good instructors early on.
I was going to ask, did you have any formal training?
I was an apprentice. I worked for some master chefs. But prior to that, I did have some training from some friends that I had met and really taught me not so much the technical aspect of cooking and all of the scientific things that we do,
right.
More or less the more social part of it, and learning from the food that you were cooking, as well as, because it'll teach you a lesson as you're preparing it if you listen, and it'll tell you what should go in it if you will listen, if you'll give it time, and if you'll slow yourself down enough. So that was probably the most valuable lesson I learned, not from a book, was just how to be more in tune with what I'm preparing.
Oh, that's interesting. I never would have been intuitive about my food necessarily. I'm one of those people that follows a recipe, right? measure, combine, do what it says, and voila, it's done.
I didn't start out that way. I mean, I started out pretty much just throwing things in a pan and seeing where they would go. Recipes have always just been kind of suggestions to me because, there might be something in it I don't like. And I'm a big one for, if I don't like it, it's not finding its way. I don't care if it's supposed to be in there. It's not making it into the pan or into the ingredients. The only thing I ever really do strictly follow are baking recipes because I only bake for fun. I've never really been trained at it. Anything I've learned is through trial and error. So I try to be a little more close to recipes when I do bake things. Doesn't mean that I don't go out of them and experiment a little, but then you learn some tricks along the way that help you.
Yeah, I have to tell you that I don't enjoy cooking all that much, but I love to bake. And I have to agree with you that when I cook, I will often just throw things together that I think will work, but not with baking. For the most part, I really try and follow the instruction because if you don't, things go wrong more often than they go right with baking. I don't know what it is. There's some precision there that has to happen.
Although I have friends that, you'll ask them something, they say, well, did you use, you needed a teaspoon of that. They'll just know because they know more the scientific end. Well, if you used that, you needed to compensate with baking powder, not baking soda.
Right.
Did you add a little vinegar to it for the acid? I'm like, no, I want it to be sweet and taste good.
Yeah.
Cake good.
Yeah, can it be easier than this?
Yeah.
So do you teach? You have culinary instruction classes that you teach? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I did. I haven't been lately. I'm still toying with going back into that a bit. But I worked at a high school for the last part of my culinary career. My wife's a teacher, so I decided to find a job that we could spend more time together and have the same holidays off. And plus, I was tired of hearing her tell me, "Oh, what are you doing? You're going to work? I'm off today." I'm like, okay. So I actually went to work at a Catholic school, and I used it more on her than she could at a public school because I was off more days. But I spent my time at a school and I was feeding. I had never worked at a school, so I ended up feeding the girls. It was an all-girls high school, like I would feed executives. My last few jobs had been feeding executive dining. So I just kept making. I said, I don't know what to make for them. I've never in my life fed children in any mass, so they're going to eat what they're going to eat. And it turned out to be a good decision because they love food and they loved eating, and it worked out real well that I wasn't just trying to feed them as kids, which showed me one very important thing is that a palate can be educated at an early age. It's just that we don't always treat them with that same point of view as we would an older person or an adult. We don't give them an opportunity to always say they don't like it or they do like it or to try it. So I really educated them on eating well.
Oh, that's interesting. And I never would have thought of it that way, but we need to get you with Michelle Obama so that we can fix whatever this initiative is that I heard is not only costing a lot of money, but they're wasting a lot of food because the kids won't eat it.
Well, you know what the major problem is, and I see it, and having been on the outside looking in and then being on the inside, it's not so much that the kids won't eat it. It's how it's prepared. It's the fact that for so many years we have trained ourselves in this type of food service that everything came out of a can and everything came out of the freezer. Mm-hmm. All right, so we have a slew of people working in these kitchens and these cafeterias without any real skill cooking, and it's not their fault. It's not it's not our fault. It's the fault of how we process this whole generational thing of feeding kids in school. It's just it's an ugly beast that it became, and there's no way to fix that really easily because you can't fire everybody that doesn't have training just simply because of unions and other. It's
Sure.
not a great thing to do either.
Right.
But, and it's really very costly to train them.
Yeah.
So the problem is a lot of schools are going to food service companies, and I in fact worked for two of them that were not probably the best at caring about what went on the plate as a matter of did it look good and was it cost effective. Okay, it was more like was the picture pretty and did we come in under budget. And because of the way they do business, they put a lot of management into place. And what the management is they're great at filing all the paperwork, following all the procedures, but they don't know how to cook.
Yeah.
So I worked for one company, a small company, and they hired all chefs. It says, we can teach a chef to do paperwork. We can't teach someone who does paperwork necessarily how to be a chef.
Right. That makes sense to me.
And honestly, dollar for dollar, if you're hiring a manager or a chef, it's about the same amount of money. So what we need to change is our philosophy and our thoughts on who is running these kitchens in the schools. And they say, oh, we don't need a chef to feed the kids. Well, you don't need a chef to feed the kids. You need a chef to train everybody else to do their job so the food is appealing.
Interesting. And I had no idea our conversation was going to run in that direction, but it's very interesting. Let me ask you, now that I know that you've actually spent time feeding kids, right, so to speak, how is feeding boomers different?
I don't think it's a lot different, except as a boomer, because kids, and if you give them the opportunity, love to eat too and can eat heartily. I think now as a boomer, as myself being a boomer, I still really love good, flavorful things. I'm probably not as inclined to try new things as I should be anymore.
Really?
Yeah, and it's funny because I find myself, like, I have a rule. We go out to eat sometimes, and if I don't see anything, and it's going to sound really crazy coming from a chef, but if I don't see anything really appetizing on the menu or something that really piques my interest, if they got chicken parm, I stick with that.
The comfort food.
Well, I figured it's something that's really hard to screw up. And I've had it really screwed up, and I'm going, oh, if they can't make chicken parm, I'm never coming back here, because the Lord knows they can't make an intricate dish. It's definitely not rocket science. And really, when you look at cooking in whole, it isn't. But I think as boomers appreciate good flavors. I mean, we've gotten into a time in our life, I tried something new last night that was really good. We went out, and it was a pulled pork over pappardelle, and I love pappardelle, and I never get it home because my wife doesn't like white noodles, so we don't eat it. But it was really, really good, and it was a little spicy, and I was looking at the chicken parm, and I went, no, I'm going to try this, and it was really turned out to be good. But I think the flavors, the balance, and the comfort is what we look for as a boomer. We like our comfort food. We probably don't think about health as much as we should.
I was going to ask you about that. We should be concerned about our health. A lot of times you end up going to a doctor's appointment, and they say, we need you to cut back this. Yeah. It's salt, or it's fat, or it's any number of things because of other health conditions that you have, right?
Yeah. And I think a good way to react towards that is that you can still eat what you want. It's the excess, and for me in particular, it's eating past like 8 o'clock at night. That is one of my biggest, and I think we've gotten into that. We are a TV generation. We do like our TV. We do like to relax in front of the tube, and the most natural thing to do is to eat when we watch TV late at night. And I'm constantly getting yelled at for that.
Yeah, and it's often the easy to eat things, which means that, it's the stuff that's already packaged.
Yeah, loaded with salt,
yeah,
loaded with sugar,
and fat, and all those other things that we're not supposed to have.
Yeah, we don't reach for the carrot sticks. No.
No, don't tell. That's just between you and me, though.
Yeah.
Right? Don't tell anybody else. I'm not reaching for the carrot sticks. I'm completely into my chocolate marshmallow ice cream these days.
Ice cream.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So if you could share 3 tips with boomers about maybe expanding their appreciation of food. You talk about not wanting to try new things so much anymore. What are some things that may have never been on our radar that we should be looking for that might be a surprising and wonderful experience for us?
Well, one of the things for me was, I'm not a big fan of Middle Eastern food, but I have found that the more I try it, the more I enjoy it. And I like, and again, moving more towards healthy stuff was like some of the dips, like hummus. You know, you had told me to eat hummus 20 years ago. I would have said, no, I don't think so. It doesn't sound good. But then I started making it. And I thought, oh, this is really good. So then I got into flatbreads that don't have as much junk in them, preservatives that aren't as high in calories, that are great for dips. So, I'm making something. So experimenting sometimes towards ethnic foods, I think, that have a lot of flavor and maybe aren't as full of calories as some of the other things we eat are a really good thing. Like I fell in love with chickpeas for a brief period, and I was roasting them. They were incredible roasted.
And that's what hummus is made of. Yeah,
yeah.
chickpeas.
And before that, I didn't want to look at a chickpea, and I still don't like them plain. But you roast them, oh, they're incredible.
What are some other ethnic regions that are known for having healthy food?
Well, I think some of the Asian foods that we look at, some of the different Asian, because of how they cook quickly and they don't use as much oil. Like one of the tips I can give you for cooking with, if you use oils at home, is I put my oil in a squeeze bottle.
Right.
And that way I can put just a little bit. I don't, if I'm pouring, we get shaky hands, we pour too much, we don't measure it. But with a squirt bottle, a plastic squirt bottle like a mustard bottle, I can put it in there just a little bit, and then if I need to add a little bit more. But a lot of Asian dishes are based with less oil. A lot of Mediterranean food is based with less oil or good oils. So one of the other, so Asian stuff, as long as you keep the noodles down, is a good alternative, I think, because you're cooking a lot of vegetables up at the same time. Protein is generally a little lower, which is good. And as boomers, we were taught to eat a lot of protein.
Right. It was always meat, with every meal. But that's not necessary, right?
No, it's not good for you because excess protein turns into fat. It's not like it gets processed into something good we can use. Like even some sugar is better for you than too much protein because the sugar is going to turn into carbohydrates if it's not, in an excess. But protein is just going to kind of like sit there and not be as healthy for you. So we need to cut back. Like it used to be the major, even as a chef, it covered the plate. You wanted good plate coverage, and that was a term we used. So you got to think back on it almost being like the size of a vegetable and the rest of your plate being comprised of vegetables. So like a third of your plate should be protein. So a lot of times you get these stir-fried dishes, that's basically what you're getting. And if you want to add some noodles into it or rice into it, that your starch is making up another small part of it.
Right. There's been a lot of talk over the last several years about white food, right? So as a chef, have you made the switch to, brown rice and whole wheat pasta? And because quite frankly, I just don't like it.
I don't like it either. The same. I'm with you on that. I have purchased some coconut sugar, and I'm going to try using that. And that's supposed to be much better for you. It's got a better rate of glycemic output. It doesn't hit you like regular sugar does. Not quite as sweet, and I don't think it tastes like coconut. So I'm going to be doing some experimenting with that. But brown pasta, no. Wheat pasta. Now they have made some leaps and bounds in improving it. I also heard there's a corn pasta that's coming out, or that is out, and actually Italians are making it. So when I look for pasta coming out and it's not my normal stuff, I want to see what they're doing with it because they eat it all the time.
Sure.
But they have like a percentage, like a 50-50 pasta that's not as bad. Oh God, I had whole wheat pizza. It was terrible. It was. I mean, make me a cauliflower dough pizza instead or something. I mean, if you're going to give me, don't give me that. But this is where we go back to. All right, how much pizza are you going to eat? Are you going to eat the whole pizza? In my younger days, yeah. But now I'll have 3 slices maybe. So is that much flour that bad for you? But if I go home and I eat 3 sandwiches or 2 sandwiches all out of white bread, then maybe that's a bad thing. So in breads I can eat grains. I don't have a problem with that. It's just some of the other things using whole wheat flours are not my idea of good. And rice has never been big. I'd rather eat quinoa than brown rice.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I could see that. At any time someone says to me, "Oh no, we've switched over to whole wheat pasta. It's the same. It's good," and I'm like, no, no, it's not. I'd rather
That,
not have it than you can't trick me into that.
and I think that's what it comes down into it. If you're that serious about it being a problem, don't eat it. Leave it for special occasions and have it then and enjoy it the right way. There's no sense torturing yourself with something that all you're thinking about is how good it could be if you use the real thing. So just stay away from it. And those few times that you want to indulge, just have it the way you remember it and the way you like it.
Right. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I was going to ask you what you see as one of the bigger challenges or concerns that boomers might have in regard to their diets, cooking at home, trying these new foods, but maybe that's part of the answer, to not worry about changing everything that's comfortable to you, but just recognize that you can't eat like you did when you were 18.
Oh yeah, your body. I mean, I eat less now sometimes I think than I ever have, but losing weight is just almost impossible.
Yes, it's so much more difficult now. I agree.
And they need to, I don't know if we would have read it, but they need to give you a manual some point in your life telling you that this is going to happen. We get them for our cars and stuff, but we don't get them for our bodies. And if we do, we don't bother to read them because we know everything when we're younger anyway. So
Absolutely. Well, wouldn't it be great if every parent, when they had their child, they sent us home with a little manual. Here's your manual of life, and here are the things you're going to want to know. Somebody should get on to writing that right away.
Yeah, absolutely. You better put it in an ebook though, because the kids aren't going to read it in paper anymore.
That's right. They've got to be able to read it on their mobile phone.
Got to download it.
Or the audiobook. There
you go.
So if you could encourage boomers right now to make some sort of change, right, in their culinary appreciation, what would you tell them to do? What would you tell them to get up off their chair and do right now?
Well, I would tell you, all right, take a dish that you like to cook already. All right, say for me it was chicken parm, but let's just use something that simple.
Right.
Try it a different way. Try it with something else. You can parm anything, all right, and you can do that with a lot of different dishes. If you cook something with broccoli, try cooking it with spinach, and also cook for color. When you're cooking things, try to add some color into your dishes, because dishes that look better are always going to taste better.
Oh, interesting.
And when I would teach my students, and there were certain things that I taught them that they knew the answers right away. After, why is that in there? It's in there for color. Okay, good. Why did I put shredded carrots in there? It's in there for color. Why did I put red peppers or spinach? And I like to use terms like it's festive. If something isn't as pretty as it should be, it's rustic. Okay, so you learn terms to describe food, because we eat with our eyes, we eat with all of our senses. So if you like a dish, say you like spaghetti and you like asparagus, put asparagus over it. Okay, if you like shrimp and asparagus, try it that way together sometime. And maybe you don't hit a home run the first time, but maybe you say, well, geez, if I had put in some mushrooms or maybe a little more garlic or maybe a couple tomatoes, and start cooking with more vegetables in your main dishes. So if you don't want to have those sides, or if you don't want to go to the trouble of making those sides, saute is my favorite way to cook, because it's the most forgiving way to cook. You can put stuff in a saute pan, and you're frying it around. You're with a little bit of olive oil,
right from the squeeze bottle.
Right from the squeeze bottle. And mushrooms are like the worst for sucking it up. So sometimes I have to, and I love mushrooms.
I do too.
Mushrooms have like no calories, and they add a lot of volume, and so they give you more food than you would need if you put more protein in there. So it's a good protein substitute. So I love doing that, and I love my pasta, so I'll serve it over pasta. So your portion of pasta can be a little bit smaller, or if you're doing rice, rice is a great way to put something over. But sautéing, frying is really a good way to eat, and it's an easy way to eat, and you can change it up depending upon what you have in the refrigerator.
Right. So so that you use the produce and the ingredients that you have and not put anything to waste either. That's another thing that I find happens a lot in my refrigerator is that I throw out food before I ever get a chance to cook it or eat it.
I know it's
sad. I mean, there's a first world problem for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's should we save this? This is wrap it up. I'll throw it away in 3 days.
That's exactly what happened. Very sad.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it happens in households all over America.
Oh yeah. We're just not trained to really be not cost effective, but that aware of how much food we are getting rid of. I taught a class on soup the other day. And it was on every Mondays I have around the kitchen table, and I try and show you some ways that I would use to cook in the restaurant or time-saving tips. And I said one of the things you need to do is in a restaurant we wouldn't have thrown away these carrots that I'm peeling, the ends, the celery ends, the leaves, the onion peels. I says they all go to make stock. So I said just take them. If you have room in your freezer, put them in a big Ziploc bag and just keep storing them until you can make some vegetable stock out of them. If you don't have time to cut all your vegetables, but you like soups, well, spend an hour and cut up a bunch of carrots, a bunch of celery, a bunch of onions, put them in little Ziploc bags, and when you want to go make your soups, take them out of the freezer, and you have a soup started. So there's ways, because while we may have a lot of time on our hands as boomers, we don't always want to spend it cooking.
Right.
Or maybe it's the last thing we think about, what am I going to have for dinner tonight?
Right. And it's a 45 minutes until dinner time, and now you're trying to figure it out. That's like the story of my life.
Yeah.
My husband comes home and says, "What are we having for dinner?" And I think, gee, I have no idea what time is it,
Well, like I said, we like to eat good, and I shop at a restaurant supply place, so we always have lobster and shrimp in the refrigerator.
Ooh.
So it's oh, would you like grilled lobster tonight? Oh, yeah. Okay, so that, but it's not all the time. It might just be plain spaghetti and sauce, too. But that's always my saving grace on that, It's because I can shop and in certain places. And,
Right.
But on the other hand, big box places like Sam's or BJ's are great for buying that kind of stuff, too, and not spending a lot of money.
Right, right. So tell me, what is the best way that people can get more of Chef Dennis? Where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on my blog, and that's askchefdennis.com. And around the internet, if you're on Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or any other social media, Pinterest, I'm Ask Chef Dennis. That's pretty much my call sign. On Google Plus, I am Chef Dennis Littley. That's because Google required a last name for a long time. Now they don't.
But at the time they did. Yeah, you had to be a real person. There was no faking out Google with any goofy names.
Now they don't care. Now they've found other spam filters. But so I'm around there on my blog. I don't blog as much as I used to, but I have a really good backlog of a lot of really tasty dishes, easy dishes. I always blog about things that people can make in a short time because I don't have time to cook. I don't expect other people to have time to cook.
And tell me what's on the YouTube channel.
Oh, my YouTube channel, I have three Google Plus shows that are current. I just finished an episode of Good Day Google Plus, and I have friends on, and it's like friends chatting around coffee. And I actually had a musical segment today. I had Dan Aston from Cornwall, England, and oh, what a great voice. I think boomers really love their music, too.
Yes, we do. We absolutely do.
And this young man had a great voice, played some beautiful music. But that's one of my shows. That's every Friday. Every Monday I do Around the Kitchen Table, and that's on YouTube. And I do with kitchen designer Susan Sarah, and we talk about food, and I show you some tips on how to make things from tiramisu to a lesson on soups. Anything that I've made in restaurants, easy, and I won't show anything that's too difficult to make. So that's a great one, and you get a video to watch while you're doing it. And then I have another show that I do with Mia Voss. It's called the Food and Booze Show, and
I like it already.
I know. Originally, it was called Eat, Pray, Drunk, but we figured so we changed it to the Food and Booze Show, and we go to restaurants and we eat whatever they put in front of us. And wow, last time I went out, I had so much food I could barely move.
And do you get a doggy bag too?
Oh yeah, they always pack up for you to go home too. Because they're just going to get rid of it after you've eaten part of it. They're not going to send it back to somebody else. So it's, can we pack this up for you? So I had gator 2 ways. I loved it.
No, I can tell. I've only had gator 1 way. You can fry just about anything and make it edible. So I've had fried alligator.
This was outrageous, and they did a gator stew too that was really, really good.
Ah.
And they fed me things that I normally won't eat. I had octopus, and it was really good. And I had lamb, and that was very good. So between those 3 things, I says, boy, you're killing me, because the rule is we have to eat whatever they put in front of us.
Right.
And I don't eat beef, and they put a burger in front of me one time, and it was good.
Well, that sounds like fun. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah.
Listen, would you like to share a last thought, an inspirational quote, something you live by, a brief story, anything to leave us with?
Well, my philosophy on food is to enjoy it, to savor it, and to make it fun. Because if it's too much work, if you think of it as a duty, you're not going to enjoy your meal, and it's just going to be substance that you're taking. So, enjoy your time around the table, have fun in the kitchen, learn things that make your life easier and more enjoyable. And food should always be something that's recreational, not a duty.
Oh, I like that. I like that attitude, especially from somebody who doesn't enjoy cooking. And the reason I don't enjoy it is because my 3 children were always so picky, and nobody seemed to, like anything, and I sort of gave up a while back. That's a better attitude to have. I like that.
Well, one of the things to follow, if that's the case, is just to start making things that you like, and don't worry about what anyone else likes. And if you put that much care and love into things that you enjoy, it's going to spill over, and people are going to realize. People that may not have eaten it before, because you're putting that kind of attention into it and you're really getting into it, will see how delicious it is too. They'll give it another chance, because you're happy about making it. It's liable to taste better. Because really, you can't. If you're unhappy, cooking's not one of the things. It's just like going to paint a picture. If I'm not happy, it's not going to be a good picture. So it's the same thing with food. If you're cooking and you're not in a good mood, get in one quick.
Now, I hear strains of your Mexican grandmother in that answer.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, man, I can smell those tortillas.
Right. I love it. I love it. Chef Dennis Littley, I have so enjoyed speaking to you today. Thank you for making time for me and for the Boomers Ultimate Guide podcast.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
This was a lot of fun. And to all of you out there, I hope you learned a few things about cooking, about culinary appreciation, and about the fact that it's okay to eat the white pasta and the white rice. Just, make sure you watch your portions. Not every meal, right? We have to worry about that as boomers now. But until next time, I appreciate your time, and I very much would like you to take care. You've been watching Boomers Ultimate Guide TV, the place where baby boomers like me and like you can come together to learn, share, and grow a thriving business and vibrant life. See you next time.